Hi, my name is Rain Bosworth. I am deaf. I am a professor at NTID, the National Technical Institute for the Deaf, at the University of RIT, Rochester Institute of Technology. Today I want to teach about the psychology, the study of the brain, and neuroscience, and that study of the brain. First, why study the brain? The brain controls everything we do, everything, including emotions, feelings, thoughts, creativity, language, expression, dreaming, sleep, learning, playing, sports, running. Everything is controlled by the brain. But what's also controlled by the brain is our heart, our heartbeat, breathing, digestion. When you think you're hungry, why is it? Because that feeling of your stomach growling? No, it's not just that. You feel you're hungry because your brain tells your stomach to go ahead and make that grumbling sound. So your brain's really controlling all that we do. It's controlling things like that also. Another example, if you decide you want to move your hand, move your fingers, do you think that it's just the hand moving itself? No, it's the brain telling the hand to move. Today, we'll cover 5 topics. First, what does your brain look like? Second, what is in your brain? Third, how does your brain work? Fourth, who studies the brain? And fifth, how do we study the brain? First, think about your brain and what it looks like. Think of your brain as like a car. Imagine you have a car, you have the hood open, and you're looking down at the motor, at the engine, and all the different parts and pieces and components that are all connected, all the different tubes and the belts and the lines and the fluids, everything, the brakes, the steering wheel, everything. It all has to be connected in order for it to run well. If one thing is not good, then the car also will not run well, right? It's the same for the brain. It has many, many parts and pieces and components, all of which must be working together in order for it to function properly. So what does the brain look like? People think the brain is just the top part of the head, but that's not the case. The brain really has like a tail, a long tail that's really called the spinal cord. So really technically that is connected to the brain. You see the picture here of all of these signals moving throughout the body from the brain. That is really the brain telling all the different body parts what to do, to move by sending those messages, those signals, or telling your heart to beat, telling your heart rate to increase or to slow down. It controls your breathing. Your brain sends those signals, those messages for that. And most of that happens without you knowing. You don't even think about it. You don't realize it, which is nice because you don't have to think hard about, okay, now I have to tell my brain to tell my heart to beat. No, you can just go ahead about your everyday, daily lives, do what you normally do fun things without worrying about, thinking about telling your brain to tell your body what to do. You also see here these yellow lines that go, like fibers that go throughout the body. Those are called your nerves. Suppose there was a wasp. And the wasp stung you and it hurt. What happens first, right? This wasp stings you, and then immediately that sensation of pain goes to the brain, and your brain perceives it as pain. It happens fast. It's almost immediately. It's wow. It's like the sting happens, and then within the blink of an eye, by the time it takes for you to look down, your brain has already perceived that sensation as pain. The brain itself looks a lot like a walnut. Yeah, it really does. There are 3 ways that the brain is similar to a walnut. First, it has a hard exterior shell, like the skull, to protect the brain. Second, it has 2 halves, which are divided in the middle. And third, it has this texture that you notice that looks quite similar to a brain. And really, that's a smart design. Because think, if the fibers and everything that's inside, the cells, everything that's inside of a brain, and you need to fit more and more things in a brain, like the brain cells. If imagine I took my brain out and I sawed it down flat. Just imagine my brain. If I sawed it flat, it would be about the same size as a surfboard if I stretched it out thin and flat. That's how big the brain would be if it was flattened out. So why is that a good thing? Well, if I have something thin and flat, like a piece of paper, and I crumple it up, imagine what happens. So say I have my skull. Can the brain fit back into the skull? Yes, it would still fit perfectly. But if it was thin and flat, what will I do with this? The head will have to also be thin and flat. That would be hard to get around that way. That would be tough. That would be tough to get around with a thin and flat head. Now, ready for a quiz? I'm curious how you'll do. This will be fun. You could do with friends or your mom or dad. So whose brain is this a picture of? That picture is a brain related to what? A rabbit, B, chimpanzee, C, dolphin, D, human. Which of those 4? Yes, it is a rabbit. You see how rabbits have those big fat cheeks in the front? Well, really, those are what's called their olfactory bulbs. They have 2, those fat bulbs in the front of their cheeks. So really that must mean that they have a very strong sense of smell, and they can smell really well because they have those big bulbs right in front there. Again, is that the brain of a dog, dolphin, human, or chimpanzee? Which? It is a dolphin. Yep. So that you see there, that part in the back of the brain, that's called the cerebellum, which helps with controlling the body. It is big, it's thick, yes, and that helps the dolphin move through the water, jumping through the water, and navigate in the water. So, you notice here, there's different animals' brains. More advanced animals have more curvature in their brains, which are called convolutions, those curves, those bumps in the brain. More simple, basic animals like rats or rabbits have more smooth brains. Those wrinkles help more with the brain cells that are inside, yes. And also bigger brains for more advanced animals. More advanced animals have bigger brains too. Here, so what a human brain looks like. So really this is a person's brain who passed away and they donated their brain to science so that it can be studied, so the brain can be studied. So that brain has been cut in half, and we're looking at it from the perspective of that side profile view. So you see the different parts of the brain here. That first big main part on the top, that is the cerebral cortex. And that is where all thoughts, thinking, language, all of your thoughts are housed there. All of them are right there in that cerebral cortex. In the back of the brain is that cerebellum, right in the back. Can show you here on my model. Looks like this. That helps with movement. That, like, if you are a talented dancer and you can control your body that way, or learning to play basketball and dribbling the ball, things like that. That would be the cerebellum that helps with that. The last part is that brain stem there. The brain stem that connects to the spine, and that controls your whole life, life functions like breathing, heart rate, heartbeat, body temperature, sleep, waking up, eating. All of those things are housed in the brain stem. So now suppose you took your brain out and you're looking at from the top view. So really you have two halves, two hemispheres of your brain. Both are independent, yes, both function independently. So if for some reason something happened to one half of the brain and it was, say for example, was removed or something, or it died, it is technically possible to still live with only that one half of the brain, with only one hemisphere. You technically can. Of course, it's better to have both, but technically you can still with just one. Both communicate with each other. Both sides communicate with each other through that middle there. The brain cells communicate with each other. That communication in that area where both halves of the brain communicate with each other is that area in the middle there called the corpus callosum. So what is inside of your brain? Suppose you're making a cake. You're baking a cake. So what goes inside of that cake? What do you need to have, right? You need to have flour. You need to have different things that you need, milk, eggs, whatever ingredients that you need. If you don't have it all right, what's going to happen, right? The cake is not going to be good. It's not going to come out right. Right, it's the same idea as like the ingredients of a cake. Your brain needs all the right ingredients for it to function properly as well. So first you have, yes, your brain cells, which control all your thinking, and those are all throughout the brain. Your brain is full of brain cells. You also have support cells that provide structure to the brain. If there's none of that, then the brain will collapse upon itself. You need that structure to hold it up to support the brain. That's like the glue of the brain, the support cells. Third, you have the makeup, the composition of the brain. It does include chemicals called neurotransmitters, also known as NTs. We refer to them as NTs. So it's not chemicals like cleaning chemicals that you spray. No, they're different. They're what make up your brain. It's like the fuel for your brain. Your brain needs those to help make up the composition of the brain through NTs, through neurotransmitters. There are many different kinds of neurotransmitters. They all really are for different kinds of communication in the brain. The cells, all the different kinds of cells, yes, they work together and provide different information to each other, and they do that through neurotransmitters. We will talk more about that in a moment. So the brain needs food, it needs to eat, it needs fuel, and it needs to do that through the blood. The blood provides oxygen and sugar and energy, such as glucose, that you need from food. If the blood isn't doing that, then you will die. You need the food, and you need your energy from the blood to do that. Then you also, lastly, you have your cerebral spinal fluid, or CSFs. It is kind of somewhat like a food, but it provides cushioning for the brain, because you're constantly, all the time, you're moving around, walking around, jumping around, and your skull is hard. So when you're moving around, your brain is hitting up against the inside of the skull all the time. So really what's happening is that CSF, that cerebral spinal fluid, is providing a cushioning between the skull and the brain, so that the brain does not get hurt as it bumps up against the side of the skull as you move around throughout the day. You also have many brain cells, which are called neurons. You have 85 billion of those brain cells, of those neurons. There's many. Your brain is full of those cells. There are different kinds of those brain cells. Some work different jobs. There are 3 main kinds. Sensory, which helps tell the brain what to feel, what it's touching, what it's seeing, what it's hearing. So each have its own job, what information that it provides. Then you also have your motor neurons. Those tell the muscles to move and to contract or to extend and to move your muscles. Lastly, you have the interneuron. That helps with exchanging information throughout the different body parts, throughout the different cells, to communicate. You see a picture of what it looks like through a microscope of a neuron. So how does the brain function? So you just saw that video that shows what it looks like inside of the brain, that there are many cells firing off and going off at the same time. So how you function, your functioning, what you do, your behavior, how you feel, your thoughts, everything is set up in that activity of those cells firing off and those functions. Normally, there are many cells firing off at the same time, but right now I want to show you 2 individual cells and what they look like going off at one time, and how 2 different cells communicate, how cells communicate in 2 different ways. So thinking of how the brain operates and functions, there are 2 ways. So one, there are electrical signals, similar to lights or batteries, that same concept, but that is how your brain runs too, through electricity. And it happens fast, which is good for sending signals immediately for pain, or when something needs to be happen immediately, it needs to be done right now. Second way the brain operates is with chemicals, those neurotransmitters, those NTs that send signals. So you see how the two different pictures and how it shows that the chemicals are surrounding that area versus the electrical signal being sent to it. So those are slower. That sends more information, sends more meaning through the neurotransmitters for different meanings of what the neurotransmitters are doing to help you, how you feel. For example, if you feel happy, or on the other hand, a different neurotransmitter will make you feel when you're tired that it's time to go to sleep. Or, for example, to tell you when you're feeling hungry. So that is really, that's the amount that's needed of chemicals to send that information between the neurons. About that amount to feel happy, to feel content. If there's too much, or if there's not enough of certain chemicals, or it'll make you not feel good or make you feel sad, that can be because there's too much because of different levels of those chemicals, of those NTs, or if there's not enough. If there's too much or not enough, there's differing levels, you will have different feelings. Your brain has many different parts that all together make it like the engine of a car. They must all run together. Scientists like to add colors, like for example my model here, but really the brain does not actually have any colors like that. It's not colorful like that. Really, it's just that one pink color. But the colors do show what different parts that you have physically and how to separate them, those areas, those regions of the brain, and where they are located in relation to each other. Also, the different colors show that we labeled each of the different parts of the brain with the different jobs that they're responsible for. They each have different jobs, different functions. For example, the frontal lobe is responsible for decision making, your personality, your attention span. The back of the brain, the red part, controls your sight, your vision, and what your brain makes of what it sees. On the side there, you see the areas responsible for language. There's many other different functions too. So who studies the brain and how? There are two main fields. If you go to college and you can take a class, either psychology to learn about why people behave the way they do, study people's thoughts, language, the thinking process. On the other hand, the other field is neuroscience. And really that's more directly studying the brain itself and how the brain controls the body, movement, behavior, thoughts, feelings, etc. In psychology, there's some work that helps people, but also some research. There are two kinds of research. One is called applied research, and that research is more to help figure out how to better help people. Maybe studying medication or kinds of therapies, counseling, to see what will work best. The other kind is called considered basic science. It's more about just understanding in general how the brain works and operates and functions and how people behave. It's more for knowledge's sake, for people who want to understand the meaning, and it's not as much how to help people. But both are equally important. Yes, we need both. Thank you for watching. If you liked the presentation, or if you prefer to take a class at college, you could take my class. I do the same lectures in my classes. If you have any questions, please email me. I'd happy to make a video explaining more about the thoughts about the brain.